Hello folks, it is time for some more Hobby Nightmares. Let's jump right in, shall we, and get going with our first Hobby Nightmare. But if you like the video, make sure you, well, like the video. And if you like what I do, make sure you subscribe. And if you have any Hobby Nightmares that you want to send in, make sure you do so to hobbynightmares@gmail.com. That is hobbynightmares@gmail.com. In the description down below. Send in your Hobby Nightmares and I'll try and get them read out for you as soon as I can if you have something interesting to say. So, let's start with Cromwell and the fact that I have a cat in the office today. So he's chilling out, sleeping behind me, but if he wants to get out at any moment, I may have to just jump up and open the door for him. But anyway, Cromwell says, or Cromwell. I'm going to call you Cromwell. Hello again, North. Cromwell again with another nightmare from my hobby vault. Today's hobby horror story comes from my D&D group and is genuinely one of the most surreal and amusing experiences I've had in the hobby. Fair warning ahead of this, the story does contain certain references to some not very nice things, but I will keep it as PG rated as I can. Cool, no problem. There are certain things I can't read out in the first 3 minutes of a video, so you're going to have to bear with me on that one, just it is how it is. I have been playing D&D and other tabletop RPGs for about 15 years now, and have been a part of numerous playgroups as both a dungeon and game master and as a player. It was frankly my gateway into playing 40k. Several years ago, I moved to a new city and started building a new playgroup out of new friends and later old friends who also relocated to the area. During this time of putting together a new group and making new friends, I made the acquaintance of one I will name as Joker. Joker and I ended up meeting through a group of mutual friends that I'd met through the local theatre scene. He and I have some mutual interests, and seeing as I was new in town and that we had met through a group, I didn't see any alarm bells, but boy howdy, had I wished that I had. And there he goes, he wants to leave. I'm sure you heard that, one sec. Always happens, doesn't it? They're like kids. They're lying there nice and quietly, but as soon as you're actually doing something you need to do, I want to go out. Right, anyway. Boy howdy, had I wished that I had. Well, again, I'm going to say something here, and you may not like it. I've been saying this quite a lot recently, but it is what it is. Theatre group people. If I went to a D&D group or any sort of role-playing group and somebody says, yes, we're theatre people, I'd be like, okay, where's my cab? See you later. Yeah, I'm not doing it for amateur dramatics. Sorry. You know, and we'll see how this goes from here. Do you know what I mean? But I've got a funny feeling that's how this is going to go. But yeah, there was a Black Lodge do an amazing video on how you should role play, and they literally said, look, role playing is pretending you're a character, right? But here's a scene, and they showed a scene with Marlon Brando and a woman from A Streetcar Named Desire, right? And the woman looks like she's acting. She's playing to the crowd, right? Who aren't there because it's a movie, right? And she comes across as really fake, and it sort of grates on you. Whereas Marlon Brando is the character. He forgets the camera's there. He's not doing it for the camera. He's doing it because he is that person. He is that character in that moment. That's what role-playing is. She is acting, and it's fake, and looks weird, and it grates on people, right? And it's very loud and obnoxious. He is role-playing. There's a difference. It's one point I failed to make in a previous video, and I failed to make it well anyway, but it's really good, and whenever I see somebody saying, oh, I'm from a theatre group and I do D&D, do you though? Do you though? Okay. Anyway, as I got to know Joker, I found out that he was a bit of an oddball and an outcast. He was a few years younger than me, having just started college, and seemed like the kind of person who just needed a friend or even a mentor. He had poor impulse control, questionable social skills, he suffered from depression, and on occasion could have a pretty nasty temper. He did have other friends, some of which were in a similar spot to him, and were also outcast types. but they grew out of it pretty quickly, and on the surface, he wasn't all that much different from a lot of the guys I knew fresh out of high school. He started playing D&D with a group that I had put together after one of the shows we had been in, and in that time, the group grew with new people. Okay, good. He started taking turns playing as characters and dungeon mastering. All was fairly normal, but we started noticing some abnormalities in his behaviour around the table. When he would dungeon master, the story needed to happen exactly as he wanted it to, with no player choice or autonomy. He would grant somebody a magical item only to destroy it when somebody found a clever use for it. For example, we had acquired flying brooms from a random loot drop at one point, which one of our players started using as an improvised weapon. He would throw the broom and recall it to him or surf on it so that his hands and at least one of his foot were free to fight as if he was a monk. After one session, it was revealed that our brooms had been destroyed in between sessions because they were too powerful. It was generally pretty petty stuff that we would just roll our eyes at and groan about, but eventually he would get visibly angry and raise his voice, and I had heard on one occasion he even threatened to hit somebody, but he played it off as a joke. I wasn't there for the last one, but it was certainly on brand. After only a few sessions, he was more or less barred from DMing our group, which seemed to solve most of the problems. Okay. Alright. Around this time, I actually started working for Joker's parents' company business, and as a result, we worked together fairly closely as he worked there part-time. The pay wasn't great, but his family made for great employers and were salt-of-the-earth people, and to be honest, I liked them more than I liked him. It was also during this time when his issues around the table were becoming more prevalent. During sessions, he would become incredibly hostile towards certain members of the party, namely BC, of Viking King fame from the Jensen stories, and BC's wife. Yeah, so Jensen started out as a story from Cromwell here. That's where this came from. Anyway, I'm going to read that again. During sessions, he would become incredibly hostile towards certain members of the party, namely BC, of Viking King fame from the Jensen stories, and BC's wife. They had fairly recently joined our game, as they had just also moved to the area for work. I had been friends with BC since we were 7 years old, and had been playing D&D with him since we were in middle school, so it was only natural that I invited him to join our game. There was clear jealousy that I had brought in my long-time friends who had quickly become more popular with our group than Joker. I had pulled him aside several times outside of sessions to tell him to lie off and stop taking everything so personally, but he did, and it persisted, which would make things more uncomfortable at work. One time he even told me, and I quote, "You're my best friend and I wish you'd stick up for me more instead of doing whatever BC says," unquote. Okay. Never be surprised by a grown man's ability to act this way. Do you know what I mean? Especially when you don't have many. If this guy doesn't have many friends and you're like one of his only friends, and I'm saying this as a detriment to him, but also kind of sticking up for him too. You know what I mean? Never be surprised if he acts this way when you're his only friend. And somebody more popular, with a wife, you know, comes in. It's sort of a natural reaction at this point from him. Because he's a bit of a... how do I put it? He's a loser. I'm sorry, yeah, he's a loser, right? This guy's a loser. And so if a winner comes along and is more popular and takes his spotlight, he's naturally going to feel challenged and hurt, and instead of addressing it like a man and saying to these people, hey, you know, confronting it out in the open, he takes you aside and starts to bitch and moan, right? Yeah. Anyway, I told him that we were friends and that I was very flattered, but this whole best friend thing was a bit of an issue. Sure, we were friends, good friends even, but I had really only known him for a couple of years, as opposed to BC, who I actually grew up with. Plus, there was significant enough age and maturity difference that us being certified besties was probably not going to happen. It was weirdly childish, but then again, he was like 7 years my junior, so that may have been a reason for the disconnect. I also told him that friends call friends out on their nonsense, which is what I had been doing. He didn't like that, but it was the truth. However, things started to turn around somewhat for him as he started seeing a girl, which generally brightened his mood and kept him occupied. They had met at his other job and seemed to be a good fit, though I'd never met her in person. He would regularly tell me about all of the time they were spending together, show me text messages between the two of them, and ask me for relationship advice. He even said that he was going to bring her to a session as she also played D&D, but nothing really ever came of that. All in all, things were looking up for Joker. He had also started working more at his other job and spent less time around our shop. One day his dad and I were working on a project together, and his dad confided in me that Joker had really struggled growing up, and that he was glad that he seemed to be shaping up into a fully functioning person finally. I mentioned that I had noticed that he seemed to have a pep in his step as well, though I didn't really see him as often these days. Alright, fair enough. His dad got a fairly distant look and then told me the following, and I quote, Joker is a good kid, but his temper gets the better of him a lot. He really struggles with the whole empathy thing. He used to blow up a lot, got in fights at school, we had to bail him out of a lot of stuff. It was really bad when he was like 14 or 15 or something. He screwed up bad. I won't go into detail, but it's the kind of thing that could ruin a lot of lives. I'm just glad he seems to have gotten over all of that. Unquote. It caught me pretty off guard, but I wasn't going to press the issue. It was none of my business, and it wasn't something I wanted to get into with my boss. Okay, right. I'm guessing I know what this guy did. Yeah. It involves women, and it doesn't involve consent. Let's move on, shall we? See what happens. Some time passed, and he stopped playing D&D at our table, but he would still hang out as a group. So we would still hang out as a group every once in a while, and he would also play 40k with us from time to time. I had also left that job. No big issues. I just had an opportunity present itself that I had to take, and Joker's dad and I parted on really good terms, with him giving me some great professional advice and a 5-gallon drum of salted pretzels. Such a Midwest thing to do. It was also around this time that his girlfriend, whom I had not met, reached out to me via social media and told me she had left her job to take an internship and that Joker was very upset. She knew that I was close to him and his family and wanted us to be prepared that he was going to be quite upset. I thought it was an odd thing to do, but figured she was also breaking up with him, and knowing his temper and mood swings, that she wanted us to be prepared. I didn't really know her, and I just figured she was an odd duck herself. Birds of a feather and all. Yeah, I'd be thinking this way as well, yeah. A few weeks later, I got a text from Banjo, also of Jensen fame, and he said that Joker was deleting everybody off of his social media platforms as he needed a fresh start. I got a text shortly afterwards from Joker, saying the same thing, that he wasn't going to be playing D&D with us anymore. We thought it was odd, but he had been less and less present at the table, and had made a new group of friends that were closer to his age than we were, so we thought little of it and went on our way. Then it happened. Content warning for stalking and, yes, non-consensual things. Okay. Here we go. Out of the blue, a group of people on Facebook released a list of several people who had committed violent and, how do I put this, non-consensual crimes and had gotten away with it. It was very detailed and contained many specifics as to what had occurred. Banjo reached out to me again with a link to this list, and on number 1 on the list was Joker. I won't go into details as it was pretty dark, but suffice to say the accusations against him were pretty heinous. So I did some digging and it turned out that they were true. Court records confirmed it in addition to some stories from people he went to high school with. Remember that story his dad told me? That's called foreshadowing, brother, and it was so much worse than what he'd let on. I then realised that all of this timing was too convenient to be a coincidence, so I reached out to the girl from his work again through social media and asked her if she was okay, and if she knew anything about what was going on. North, what I'm about to say sounds made up. I have worked in the mental health field, and as a result, I have interacted with certified psychopaths, and I have been beaten within an inch of my life by some of them. I even turned into a wanted fugitive. Sorry, I'll read that again. I even turned in a wanted fugitive. Sorry. I even turned in a wanted fugitive. Not a hobby nightmare, but a story for another time nonetheless. Yeah, please send that in. Hobby or not, that sounds interesting. All of that being said, I swear to God, this was the most surreal experience of my life. Joker had never dated this girl from his work. He did not even have her phone number. He was a stalker. A 100% bona fide stalker. He would try to follow her home from work. He would stay late so that he could follow her back to her car. And he would force her to give him a hug every day before he would let her leave. They didn't even work the same shifts. All those texts that he had shown me weren't from her. He fabricated them. All the gifts he had bought for her, she didn't accept and made him return them. She didn't get an internship, she moved to get away from him. She told me that she knew about the text he made up because he would try to gaslight her into believing that she sent them when she was drunk or something, even though they were from a different number. This poor woman had to put up with his harassment for months before leaving. I felt terrible for her, and at the end of the conversation, I found out she and I were attending the same college for grad school, so we met up and cleared the air that I did not know what was going on, or what he was doing, or that he was stalking her, and we corroborated our experiences. After this, I called together our group to make sure we were all on the same page, to make sure he was blocked, and that if he tried to reach out, we would be united in our response. Most of us never heard from him, except Banjo. A few weeks or months, maybe later, it's been a minute, so honestly I don't remember, Banjo calls me again. Before I go on here, the parents in the story failed. Do you remember before when Joker's dad was talking about what he'd done in high school, like it was like no thing, right? Yeah, you failed. You failed. You may be a nice guy, but you failed at bringing up this young man. Now, there are certain times when, you know, you're a grown man and you've got to take responsibility for your own actions. The way your parents brought you up is not an excuse to do things like this later on in life. It isn't. But I will say, first and foremost, some blame has to go to the parents here. You know, if your son starts getting into his head that it's okay to do stuff like this, as a dad, as a father, it's your responsibility. Not your wife's, it's your responsibility. Right? You come down on that like a ton of bricks. A ton of bricks. Doesn't matter what you need to do. Right? That's not how you are. That is not how you are. You know? If you need to get him therapy, but sometimes softly doesn't work, man. And you know what I'm talking about. Sometimes softly doesn't work. You've got to be shocked into obedience. Like, I'm sorry. You know, I'm a teacher, right? I do lads who are this age, in their late teens. I teach lads who are this age, right? Sometimes they need a shock. It's not enough to sit them down going, yeah, you probably shouldn't be doing this, you know. No. It's woodshed time. It's woodshed time. Absolutely. Alright, so I'm going to change the name of this guy. I'm going to change the name. But it's a friend of mine called Mark. Right? And Mark was pretty weird around women. Alright? Pretty weird. And when he went to university, he was at my university, and that's how I met him. We generally were talking about things, and he was talking to me about things that he'd done in school that he wasn't proud of. Turns out he was pretty stalkerish with a few women in school, right? And when he was in university, he did something pretty heinous with one girl that he was, you know, seeing, quote unquote. Anyway, he goes home, and his dad had already warned him, and apparently, like, his dad just took him into a room and beat him black and blue. He was like, I told you I told you, like, this is not acceptable. This is what happens to you out there, so it's going to happen here too. You're a grown man. Put your hands up. And of course he didn't, because, you know, it's your dad. And his dad just wailed on him. And said, you will learn, or I will go to the police myself. I'll say, I want you out of my house and out of this place now. You will learn. And do you know what? He came... I'm not saying you should do this. I'm not saying you should do this. But he was shocked so much, he came back, and this lad was a changed lad. He was changed. He went to therapy. He went and got himself sorted right out. And he's fine now, right? He's married with kids, he's fine. Yeah? Sometimes you need that shock. That's a last resort, by the way. That's not the first resort, that's a last resort. But you can tell his dad just had enough. He said, nah, my son's not turning into a predator, sorry. You know? He's not. This is the last recourse I've got left. I'm gonna give him the belt. This is the last resort I've got left. He's not turning into a predator. That's not going to be who my son is. So he shocked him, then sent him to therapy. He said, you haven't got a choice. You want to live in this house, you're going to therapy. That's it. You know? And he took the decision away from his wife, who was being very softly all the time. And that's what he needed to do. And it worked, right? I'm not saying you should do that first and foremost. But a shock to the system really helped this lad get his life in order. So his dad's failed him here, is what I'm saying. Mum too, but his dad has definitely failed him by excusing this nonsense behaviour. But then again, when this man becomes a grown man, that's when his responsibility is his and his alone. Right? It is. And this guy... I've never known these guys to change when they get into their 20s, when they're adults. Do you know what I mean? These are broken people who need, you know, they need to go away. That's what I'm saying. Anyway, a few weeks or maybe months later, it's been a minute, so I honestly don't remember, Banjo calls me again. Hey, Joker's at my front porch demanding that I let him in. Just making sure that I should call the cops, right? Yes, I said. That's probably for the best. Okay, I'll do that. Just wanted to make sure I'm not overreacting or anything. In the end, Joker left before Banjo could dial the police. Banjo had warned him through the door that he was calling the cops, and Joker booked it out of there. I asked Banjo later what happened, and he basically said that Joker wanted to explain the lies being told about him, and was insisting that Banjo let him in so he could talk. Needless to say, Banjo had no interest in hearing him out. Our group is a little more selective nowadays on who we invite to play D&D and 40k with. Sometimes, you really never know who your friends are until you do some digging. For every good-natured outcast looking for his tribe, you find a Joker. I wouldn't say for everyone. You know what I mean? Some people have just had a rough time of it in life. You need to get off that narrative, alright? Stop painting all men with the same brush. That's a treacherous statement. Don't say things like that. And that is a damn shame. Joker is still around somewhere. Banjo and I both seen him out and about, but we made sure not to be noticed. It's spooky out there sometimes, but there was a silver lining. It is largely because of Joker that I met Banjo, and he was also involved in that play that we were in. We've been pretty tight ever since, and it is largely because of Banjo that I met my spouse. So despite everything, I think it was a net win for me anyway. Not really a moral to the story, just mostly a happy ending, at least for me. As always, keep up the good work, North. Looking forward to writing in again sometime. Yeah, cheers. Yeah, yeah, that's fine. It's fine. You know, just be careful. You know, you said for every good-natured outcast looking for his tribe, you find a Joker. I disagree. I think it's like 20 to 1. You know what I mean? For every 20 good-natured outcasts looking for a tribe, you'll find one Joker. Maybe. You know, we need to be careful what we say when we write in. And also, yeah, what you did was the right thing. You went and looked for evidence first. And once you corroborated that evidence, and there was official evidence, like from the police and stuff, and from court records, that's when you knew, okay, you know. But I'm hoping that you wouldn't just take, the word of somebody else. I wouldn't. Like, if somebody said to me, oh, by the way, you know, your friend did this, I'd be like, okay, let me corroborate that. You know, the stalker thing there, yeah, that's awful. Trust me, that's awful. So you did the right thing in going to her and saying, listen, I insist we meet up. That's the right thing to do. Don't just take it as a text saying, oh yeah, he did this. Oh, did he now? Right. Well, if he did that, then meet me. Meet me and say that to my face. So I can see. Do you know what I mean? Meet me. You did the right thing there, and she did. And and you were convinced. You went, right, okay, yeah, fine, right. This is somebody who's actually gone through some stuff. Yeah, so you did the right thing, man. Yeah, these guys like this who are this far gone, they don't change. In my experience, in general, they don't really change. Yeah, that is a powder keg of a person waiting to explode and take 3 or 4 people with him. Anyway, Hans says, "Hi North, I would like to stay anonymous." Well, I tell you what, man. You even signed off with your name. Oh, right. Regards, Hans, in quote unquote. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Okay, so he wants to stay anonymous. No problem. I joined our German Warhammer club lately. That is basically as far as I can go without exposing myself. Maybe call me Hans, a nice stereotypical German name. About me. There is to say, I suffer from depression from a long time and keep struggling. Joining the club was a big step for me. I've been playing for a long time, a few years now, but I consider myself a bit of a beginner. The number of opponents I have had was very limited for that time, and I was the most experienced of that little group of people who played. Okay, that when I say I am considering myself a beginner, and I wanted to learn from people who know playing, and that the group dissolved itself, was why I joined the club, as I wanted to keep playing. Okay, I can tell English isn't your first language. So basically, your group dissolved and you wanted to keep playing, so you found a new group. Fair enough. Fair enough. I am older now, so clearly an adult. If that is of importance, and in advance for the upcoming story, I never insulted someone or was disrespectful. Okay. My nightmare situation. I played a few matches with the club members. I really like the people there, and even though the table often gets wiped with me, I had a lot of fun. Winning a game is fun, but it's not necessary for me to have fun in a 40k match. Due to my depression, or another health issue, I have a very bad memory, and I've had one for a while now. So learning the changes of 40k is kind of hard for me, especially that I started in 9th and then 10th came along, and there's all of these constant changes. So it happened a while ago, that on one of our communication channels for the group, somebody asked for a rules clarification, and as it was about my faction, I wanted to help out. I was almost right, if I would have remembered the new iteration of the rule, but the one before the codex stuck in my head, as it was so similar. I was so sure I was right, even when I posted the new rule, I misread it again and was defending my outdated version of it. I was so sure that I argued even against more experienced players. In the end, I was taught better, but I stood by my mistake and said I must have remembered it wrong and that I was wrong. Even after that, I got corrected again and explicitly mentioned again that I was wrong before, and that didn't feel good, especially when I found the issue a day later. It was one word that had changed from version to version. I was so adamant on my wrong interpretation, as it was my army's rule, which I should know. And when I misread it again, it just stuck in my head. Right after that, I was very down. Dude, I'm gonna... Hans, man. Before I even go on, you need to lighten up, my guy. I don't mean depression. I don't mean that. Like, you can't just switch that like a switch. I mean, seriously. Getting a rule wrong in a discussion made you feel very down and stressed. You need to give yourself some grace here, my man. Now, this is... There are more important things going on in the world than you getting some rules wrong with 40k. Sometimes you need to take a step back, or need somebody like me, I guess, or like a friend of yours, to make you take a step back, say, mate, no, it's a game of toy soldiers. You know, stop being so ridiculous. I even said... I think I shouldn't play, as I'm not even able to remember my army rule, which is absolutely intolerable for myself. Yeah, it is. And I do not want to be a burden. Some reacted that I shouldn't worry about making mistakes. 40k is complex. And they are right. But in my head, the damage is done. I made a big fool of myself in front of the whole club. No, you didn't. Yeah, dude, come on. A big hurdle from my brain to overcome. Shame does not work that well with depression. No, it doesn't. So since then, a few weeks now, I have avoided writing too much in the club channels and did not ask for a game anymore. Honestly, I'm a bit scared. Scared to be rejected. And now, it happened again. A rule changed, and I liked it. I chose my words poorly, not in an insulting way, just a bad explanation. I did not explain thoroughly what I meant, and then there was a backlash against what I had said, basically correcting me. Things I did not mean, nor did I say it that way, so I defended myself and what I said, and explained myself. I chose words poorly again, like before, which probably led to more confusion, and I got corrected as if I wouldn't understand a basic rule, a real basic rule. Now I started to explain even more, and even got a bit defensive of what I had said, because I felt like I was being treated like somebody who doesn't know anything. The discussion ended in nothing. Nobody even reacted to me saying if I got it wrong. I explained more, and then deleted the explanations again. Now I have even more anxiety to interact with my club, even to ask for another round, as I feel I got misunderstood, and my explaining sounds like my correcting myself as if I would have made a mistake, but trying to straighten it out and hide it, as if I would have meant something else. On top of that, I feel like I got totally misunderstood, as from my first army rule mistake, now I'm being treated as if I don't know anything, which probably led to the assumption that I would have forgotten / misunderstood that simple rule. I really do not know what to do now. Dude, I'm what do you think I should do? I could read on there, but you repeat yourself, and it's fine. Should I say sorry for admitting sorry. Should I say sorry for something I already admitted was my mistake? Should I say sorry for when I was treated as if I knew nothing just because I was misunderstood? Dude, you seem really scatterbrained to me. This is going to sound really, really harsh, but this reads like I've had so many messages from people like this, and it's people who are highly strung and liable to fly off the handle. And now, if you feel triggered by that, then it probably means I've hit the right note, right? You're somebody who just... I think there's something here you're not telling me. Okay? Normal people, unless you're in a really bad group, right? Normal people don't react to you getting a simple rule wrong in the way that you're saying. Do you know what I mean? Unless you're in a really bad group, which might be the case. In that case, I suggest you take the people that you like in that group, you play games with them, and then you don't play with anybody else, right? Or just leave, find another group, if that's the case. If that's not the case, or lighten up, you know what I mean? Just say, oh, you know what I mean? I get a few things wrong, so what? Move on with my life. But this reads like somebody who puts far too much stock in 40k as a hobby. It's a game of toy soldiers, dude. You need to take a step back, go out and touch grass. You know, like, you're putting far too much importance in your life on this game of toy soldiers. I'm being serious. Listen, so you got some rules wrong and people called you out for it. Who gives a shit? Seriously. I'm being serious. Nobody cares. Like, literally nobody cares. And I mean that in a good way. I'm not saying boo-hoo or woe is you, get over it. No. Nobody cares, dude. The people watching Hobby Nightmares right now don't care. They might be bored of me talking about it, right? That's how little thought you need to put into it. Here's the thing. Do you know when you really don't like somebody and you hate them, right? You're giving them power over you. That's what you're doing. You're giving up power. You know? The best thing you can do is say, listen, I don't have time to hate this person. They're not that important to me. And move on. That's what you should do here. You shouldn't have time to get this butthurt about a discussion about toy soldiers. And if you do, you need to re-examine where your life is. And look at your life and go, why am I thinking this way about bloody 40k? Why? Do you know what I mean? Look at your life. Look at your life. You should be doing other things. Maybe it's video games with friends. I don't know. Maybe it's role-playing. Maybe it's going on runs and going to the gym. Maybe it's working and getting better at whatever you do for a living. You know, learning a skill, going to college, going to university, doing something else. You know? But you shouldn't be getting this annoyed over simply being called out for getting a rule wrong in a group. And if the group is that bad, walk away. It's a net negative for you. If the group is as bad as you're saying, then that means it's a 1 in 100 group. Do you know what I mean? It's very rare for groups to be as bad as you're saying. But if they are this bad, walk away. That is my honest advice to you. You should walk away and go do something else that you want to, that you feel what might be cool, right? Or find a new hobby group, you know? But stop beating yourself up for getting some rules wrong. And finally, the way this... I know that English is not your first language, but the way this is written is very hickledy-pickledy and scatterbrain. Everybody that I've spoken to with serious anxiety problems or serious problems with their anger types this way. They type how they speak in this way. So maybe that's something you also need to look at. Anger issues, right? Because these questions at the end are, number one, they're not written in you know, should I say sorry and make a bigger fool of myself? Should I say sorry for when I was treated as if I knew nothing just because I was misunderstood? Huh? You know, that kind of stuff. Yeah, you already know the answer to all this. No. But these are melodramatic things that you're doing. This is a child talking. I'm sorry, man, but like, this is what it is. It's the child inside of you coming out and saying, you know, why? Why should I say sorry? Like, so clearly you've been asked to say sorry. Clearly you've done things that you haven't told me about in this Hobby Nightmare. I'm reading between the lines here, by the way, but I'm quite good at it. So email me again and tell me if I'm right. And I won't read it out. It'll just be between me and you. Email me again, tell me if I'm right. But that's my advice anyway. Stop letting 40k have such a big rule over your mood swings. Get some therapy, right? Head over there, talk to somebody. And don't just get any therapy. Find a good therapist that works for you. It's not an easy thing to do, but once you do, your life will start to turn around, man. Take all of this pumped up energy, go for a run, go to the gym, do some weights. Alright, put the models down. Go do some weights. Go do some cardio. Put that energy somewhere else. That is my advice. And again, it is simple. You know, you get over that hurdle. Take that bad energy you've got, the anger you've got, and use it to do something else. Anyway, moving on. Bo says, howdy North, your friendly neighbourhood war criminal here. For a third and hopefully easier to read time. After all, they do say, third time's the charm. Ah, yes, I remember Bo was the person who kept trying to be a comedian and it wasn't working. Sorry, mate. This time, it's a double nightmare. Or, well, kind of. It happened on a Friday, relatively recently. I came home from work, had my shower, and decided I'd go visit the gaming club in my old home city. The one run by Alex and his family from last time. When I walked in, it was only Peter behind the bar, looking worn out. I said my greetings and sat opposite him, figuring I'd just chat and have a drink with him, my treat. Okay, guys, if you've done previous Hobby Nightmares and characters have turned up in those, remember, it may be a big event for you that you did a Hobby Nightmare, but it won't be for me and the other people watching. We don't know who Peter is, we've forgotten. So remind us, right? Which perked him up real fast. Feel free to hydrate at your own convenience as you read. As we chatted away, a kid walked in, about mid-teens. Best guess, 16 years old or so. He said hi and went over to the bigger play area on the floor above. The club has two fairly big play areas. One below, in a hall next to the entrance where the bar and painting area are, and a floor above, which is entirely dedicated to play. A couple of minutes later, the kid came down, asking if he could go borrow some models from the club for a demo game of 40k. Peter explained he'd have to join or buy a drink before he could. Club policy. So the kid got a Fanta and some minis, about 1,000 points worth. I went back up. At this point, I asked Peter if he minded if I go and spectate the game, and he decided to join me, so up the stairs we went. This kid bought 1,000 points worth of models on a... okay. As we stepped into the play area, I pointed out the kid's table, and that's when the first indication of trouble occurred. As Peter let out the deepest, most long-suffering sigh I had heard that year. It might be a good idea for some tea. Apparently, the kid was playing his demo game against the club's problem child. Let's call this person Sue. How would I describe Sue? Black and white thigh highs, pink pleated miniskirt, and a metal band tee, heavy makeup. Gamer girl meets metalhead meets goth chick. Flat as a washboard. Roughly 25, dressing as if they're 15, playing Tyranids. It's like every Tyranid player ever. Anyway, we walk over, and while I take a seat on one of the benches that line the walls around the play area where the spectators can relax, I watch Peter beg Sue to just play a regular demo game with the kid and not do any funny business. Needless to say, this did not happen. Sue's list was monster heavy, and the kid's list was mostly stuff he thought looked cool. Infernus Marines, Intercessors, some Scouts, Infiltrators, nothing that could deal with the monsters. Sue proceeded to wipe the floor with the kid in a manner I can only describe as cringeworthy, rolling dice into and behind cover, insisting the opponent stay on the other side of the table, nudging his minis in and out of range, using dice that was so blatantly weighted that out of 4 rolls, 15 of the dice, out of 4 rolls of 15 dice, 13 fell on 6s, all 4 times. To call it cheating is an understatement of the century, which you can imagine made me a wee bit displeased. About halfway through that abomination, I asked Peter if he minded if I used some minis to make a 2k list. Being that I am a club member, all I got in return was, "Do you even need to ask?" Look, and off I went. Coming back with my list and carry of minis, just as the horror show of a demo game came to a close, I asked Sue to play against me, which was met with an instant "yeah," since apparently not many wanted to play against Sue these days. I didn't even bother to check what my list was like. She didn't even bother to check what my list was like, just tossed more monsters onto the table, which was mistake number 1, as my list was pretty much tailor-made for monster hunting. Impulsors loaded with Hellblasted and Plasma Devastators, backed up by Plasma Interceptors, and all led by an Apothecary, which was tossed in to one of the Hellblaster Repulsors. Okay, here's what I'm going to say here so far. We're nearly at the end of the story, so I think he's going to knock her off the table. What I would have done here, Bo, is insist that this young man play with me. That sounds wrong. But you know what I mean? I would insist that this young man, you and me, are going to play a team game with this army list, and I'm going to show you what Space Marines, what the army you pick can do against a list like hers, which is really powerful, right? What you've picked is stuff that's cool, and I applaud that, but there are other units that are just as cool and can also do a hell of a lot of damage, alright? So play with me. Sounds wrong. Play with me. We'll do a doubles. We'll be a team against this girl. Again, sounds wrong. And we'll beat her off. Again, sorry. That's what I would do anyway. You know what I mean? I think just by beating this woman, like, yeah, you're feeling good, but the kid's probably just left. Do you know what I mean? Then came mistake number 2. Rolling in cover is something 2 people can do. Mistake 3 is using weighted dice. Mistake number 4 was throwing a tantrum against somebody who grew up with a sergeant at home and who's got a sergeant's bark down pat. By top of turn 3, Sue had 1 screamer killer, which was probably promptly blown away. After which Sue stomped off to sulk, and I gave the kid a proper demo game with a mellow list. No stratagems or advanced rules, just a slower paced game where we got to roll some dice, blow up some Necrons, lost a Marine or 2 but ultimately won, and he had a really fun time. Well, that's redeemed you somewhat there. That's good. After all that was done and I was about to head home, Sue approached me. Still clearly angry, but also clearly somewhat scared. Apparently, my sergeant's bark was a little too effective, as Sue asked me why I did what I did in a very sheepish way. I explained my point of view and why I did what I did, and only after that did it seem to click for Sue that that he was acting like a dick. Yes, Sue is a guy. Something I only learned after agreeing to go out for coffee with Sue on another day, at which time he showed up in tight jeans, a white plain tee, with his hair in a ponytail without any makeup. Anyway, I hope this was readable for you. Best regards, Bo. It was. Much better than last time, mate. Well done. I did not see that coming. I did not see that coming. So Sue wasn't trans there because they turned up as a guy the next time. I don't know, man. I've given up trying to figure out what the hell is going on with all this stuff. Anyway, I love you a long time. I'll speak to you tomorrow for another bit of 40k rantage. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll speak to you soon. Have a good one. Bye now.